going to favor the Thunder slightly in this matchup over the Pelicans. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going a little bit against the grain on this one simply just because when I look at the Thunder compared to the Pelicans, it's without a doubt that the Pelicans have more playoff experience at their disposal compared to the Thunder. The Thunder are a relatively young team, and even though that they don't have a better record than the Pelicans statistically speaking, I just believe that in this case that the Thunder with their young, savvy, you could say gritty core is going to do just enough to get by the Pelicans. I don't think it's going to be in an overwhelming fashion where the Thunder win by 15, 20 points, where it's just an absolute blowout. But I think the Thunder are going to be toe-to-toe with the Pelicans. And when it comes to New Orleans, the one thing that I have to focus on is the fact that they don't have Zion Williamson in the fold for this game. He's been dealing with injuries the entire year. And even if, hypothetically, the Pelicans were to get past the Thunder and find their way into a playoff scenario as, I believe, the 8 seed, there's no guarantee that he would play in that upcoming 1 versus 8 matchup when the playoffs come around. But even with that said, I still think the Thunder are going to have their hands full, because when you look at what the Pelicans have at their disposal, you got Brandon Ingram, you got CJ McCollum, you got Jackson Hayes, you got a multitude of players that the Thunder are going to have to play really tight defense against. And not only that, when you look at someone like Brandon Ingram can go out there and drop 35 points, do that relatively easily. And then you could look at CJ McCollum. If he's putting 35, 40 minutes out there on the court, he could put up a nice 25, even sometimes a 30 piece for the Pelicans. So when I look at the Thunder, obviously I'm banking on the fact that SGA would just have to pop off. SGA would have to get somewhere around 30 to 35 points. Lou Dort would have to chip in for probably around 20 to 25. If they could get some good contributions from Josh Giddey and Jalen Williams, I think it will be better suited to help out the Thunder in this game against the Pelicans. But it is not going to come easy. And I think just looking at the overall betting favorites for this game going into it, I think the overwhelming pick would probably be the Pelicans, simply just because you have to side with the fact that they're playing at home. They have a little bit more playoff experience compared to the Thunder. But I think this is one of those times where I'm going to bet on the underdog. And I like the way that the Thunder have been slowly and incrementally improving in the Western Conference. They have a really good young core that they've been developing over the last couple of years. I still believe they're a couple of years away from being a legitimate contender in the Western Conference. I'm just of the mindset that in this case, I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm just going to pick the Thunder because I think they'll have just enough firepower to get over the top against the Pelicans. If the Pelicans had Zion at their disposal, I think that the Pelicans win this game handily, 10, 15-point win in favor of New Orleans. But the fact that he's not there, I think it's going to hurt them in this game. But overall, I see this game being very competitive. I think it's going to come down to a 2 to 3 possession game when it's all said and done. But I'm going to give the Thunder a slight edge in this one. And as far as I see it, come up with the upset against New Orleans.
So for once, we actually have a difference of opinion. I'm actually going to go with the veteran leadership of the Pelicans. We saw what the Pelicans were able to do without Zion in a playoff series just last year, if not the year before, where they were able to take Phoenix to 6 games. We saw what CJ McCollum has been able to do in terms of bringing that veteran leadership, having that second scoring option, and just having a dynamic overall guard play. Maybe not from the defensive standpoint because he's only 6'2", 6'3", but his shot-making ability, his ball handling skills, his ability to create space at the 2 guard is just something that is slept on. And then we all know that he is a pretty above average shooting guard in terms of being also able to facilitate the basketball. So I think that CJ McCollum presents an issue to guard. And then I didn't even talk about Brandon Ingram. We all know Brandon Ingram can go for 40 points on any given night, depending on, like Kyle said, what is presented to him from a defensive front. Now, I would assume that's going to be Lou Dort's assignment, but if you get Lou in foul trouble, that's going to put Brandon Ingram, who is a very efficient free throw shooter, at the line, which is going to get him into a rhythm offensively, which if his jump shot is falling, he's also an above average 3-point shooter, and he shoots efficiently from the field. I'm not going to go out there and say above 50%, but he can knock some stuff down for you if he's left with enough space. Not to mention the height advantage of him being 6'10", 6'11", whatever the height is. We all know that he's a very lengthy and very athletic three in terms of at the forward position. But he can bring the ball up. He also can distribute very well. He can rebound the basketball. I believe that his defense has improved since he's gotten in the league. And like Kyle said, when you talk about having the ability to rebound with Valanciunas and the rest of the depth of this franchise, I think that the Pelicans have enough in the tank, especially from being used to playing without Zion and the inexperience of what OKC brings to the table. I think that New Orleans is going to find a way to put SGA in specific situations where he's not going to be effective. He's not the world's greatest defensive player, so if you were to get him on a switch, back him down into the post, and if he's forced to make a bad decision, put some people at the free throw line, that's going to eliminate him from the offensive game. He's going to be thrown off, and then he's not going to be able to get into that offensive rhythm to put up those 30, 40-point performances. I think New Orleans, I think Willie Green and this team are going to be able to take advantage of the inexperience of OKC. The fact that Oklahoma City is in this particular situation, the fact that the Thunder go from a top 2 pick to a play-in tournament team shows the progression of what this team can do. When Chet gets on this team and he becomes healthy, I think he takes them to the next step. Give them a few years, man. Give them 2-3 seasons. I promise you they will be a top 5 seed in the Western Conference because this youth is only going to get better. And with the incredible amount of draft picks they have in the next couple of seasons, I think that is only going to continue. Bring a star player over. Maybe if you can swing a Damian Lillard with a bunch of draft picks and you get him all the way back from Portland, I think he would take them to another level. Backcourt of Damian Lillard and SGA would be crazy, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of predictions, I think I think New Orleans can take this game pretty comfortably. I would agree with Kyle's prediction, probably anywhere from 5 to 10 points, but instead of going with OKC, I have the veteran leadership of Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum beating out the youth of Oklahoma City.